Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Nun Daled Amud Beis. 3 lines from the top. Our Mishnah taught us that if a person is traveling and he does not get to his destination before nightfall, he's able to then allow his chamor to carry his load. We explained in the Gemara that it should be that while the donkey is traveling, while it's walking, he then puts the load on top of the chamor. That way the chamor does not do a complete malacha of an akira and a hanacha. The Mishnah goes on to say, however, when he gets into the city, he has to then go first to the earliest chatzor that it's mishtameres, and then unload the donkey, because he can no longer travel in the Rishus HaRabim beyond this chatzor, because the Chachamim did not allow more than the minimum. The Gemara now says the following, quoting the Mishnah, Higia l'chatzor chitzoni, when he gets to the outer chatzor again, the first chatzor mishtameres, when he enters the city. Omar Rav Huna said the following, Haisa behemtoi tu'una kli zechuchis, a person who has his animal carrying glass, mevi karim uksos, he may place pillows and cushions and place it underneath the animal, and he can then remove the ropes, allowing the sakim to fall, the sacks to fall. Ask the Gemara, it says in our Mishnah, those items that are not muktzah, you can go ahead and remove them from the animal yourself. Answers the Gemara, we're talking about over here that these glass items, these glass kalim, were used for bloodletting, and therefore they're ma'us, whereby they're muktzah machmas mius, and therefore they're not fitting for Shabbos. Ask the Gemara, if that's the case and they're muktzah, so how can you put the cushions on the ground to then have these kalim fall onto the cushions? It will mevatel klime hechon. It will make so that the cushions will then no longer be able to be used for Shabbos. Either it's a problem because it's doime to soiser, as if you broke the kli, or some learn that it's doime to boine, it's as if you now place something on the ground as like a form of building because it cannot be removed. Al koponim, it's an isur d'Rabbanan, whereby how can you then place the karim and ksosos, the pillows and cushions on the ground? They'll no longer be able to then be removed after the kalim are removed, after the kalim fall on there. Answers the Gemara, bishlife zutri, we're talking about small sacks, and therefore you have a pile of karim and ksusos to then break the fall, and then on the top, after it falls, you remove the one underneath, then the cushion underneath that, until finally it gets closer to the ground and then falls onto the ground, whereby there's no longer problem of being mavato kli mehechana, because you're able to then use those cushions subsequently. Says the Gemara, asking the following question, Meisvei, if an animal is carrying tevel, which trumas and meiser are not taken off, which is muktzah, and ashoshios, we're talking about glass, thick glass pieces. It says over here in the Brisa, you remove the ropes and the sacks fall, even though they will break. So here we see that indeed you're not able to put karim ksosos underneath. So why do we say before, according to Rabbi Havuna, that you could put the cushions underneath the glass? Answers the Gemara, Hasan bekulso. Here, the glass that we're talking about is thick glass pieces that will ultimately be used for windows that will have to be cut to size, and therefore they are muktzah. And not only that, but since you can go ahead and ultimately use these glass pieces, so therefore there's no heter to bring the karim and the ksusos, the pillows and the ksosos and the cushions in order to break the fall. Gemara says, Dekanami, let's medayik this from the Mishnah itself, Diktani, from the Brisa, Dumya de Tevel. It says, Tevel va'ashoshios. Ma Tevel de loy chazi le, av hachanami loy chazi. Just as Tevel, which you didn't take chumas and maises from, is not chazi, it's muktzah, so too, these chuchis, the ashoshios, are also equally muktzah. Ask the Gemara, what does it meant in the Brisa when it's even though they may break? Mao the same, I might think, lahafsid muat nami choshishu. I might think even the little loss that there might be, little bit of pieces of glass that might be then lost, that might be sufficient to allow a person to bring karmic sosos to break the fall. Kamash malon, the Brisa teaches us otherwise you cannot bring karmic sosos to break the fall of these ashoshios. The Gemara brings the following Brisa Tanya Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer Haisa behemtoi teuna shalif shel tvua. If you have an animal that is carrying a load of a sack of tevel, of tvua, that's tevel, meiniach roishoy tachteo umesalko letzad acher v'hu noifa meilov. Rabbi Shimon Yochai says you can move your head by pushing off the sack, and then it will fall on its own. Since it's a form of tilta megufoi, it's not prohibited, and this would be a way of dislodging the sack that's on the animal. Chamor Rabbi Gamliel haisa tu'uno dvash. We're told that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel had a chamor, a donkey that was carrying a load of dvash. V'lerotze lefarkoi ad motzei Shabbos. He did not want to unload the donkey until motzei Shabbos. The Motzei Shabbos Mesa. We're told over here that the donkey died on Motzei Shabbos. Ivanantnan noitel keliman, he told him. Ask the Gemara, but our Mishnah says that which is not muktzah, you can go ahead and remove. You can take it off yourself. So why didn't he do that? Answers the Gemara, keshehidvish. Here we're talking about where the devash became soured up. That means it was muktzah. Ask the Gemara, hidvish l'may chazi, if it was muktzah, why was he carrying this hidvish, this vinegar type of dvash on this donkey? What was he carrying it for? It has no use, l'chara. Answer the Gemara, it does have a use. L'ksisa de gamale, to then alleviate the sores of the gamal, of the camel. They would rub this on the back of the camel, and this would be a good salve, a way of then healing the camel's skin, the sores. But since that cannot be done on Shabbos, therefore it's muktzah. So that's why Rabbi Gamliel did not want to remove the vash that was hidvish. Ask the Gemara, V'yasir chavon v'yiplu sakin. Okay, the Mishnah states that if you cannot remove with your hands because it's muktzah, so then just remove the ropes and allow the sack to fall. Answer the Gemara, mitzteru zike. If you did that, then it would break open. The Yavi asked the Gemara, Karim v'ksosa v'yaniach tachten. So why don't you bring cushions underneath so that when it falls, it'll break the fall, and thereby it won't break the sack, that which is holding this hidvish. Answers the Gemara, it will get all of the cushions sullied, whereby and therefore it's not an option to bring karmic sosos to break the fall. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel did not want to then remove the vash that was hidvish on Shabbos. He didn't want to remove it with his hands because it was muktzah, and he did not want to then remove it from the ropes. Ask the Gemara, how can he keep it on the animal's back? Hare, there's sar balechayim. If it's sar balechayim, the assumption over here is that it's diraisa, and if it's diraisa, it should be doiche the dirabanan of being mevatel kli mehechanoi. Answers the Gemara, kisover tzar balechayim dirabanan. He's of the opinion that tzar balechayim is dirabanan. It's a machlokes amongst the tanoim whether tzar balechayim is diraisa or dirabanan, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is of the opinion that it's dirabanan. Says the Gemara weiter, Abai ashkichei le rabba the kameshaf shef le librei agavo de chamora. Abai found that Rabba was playing with his son and sliding him on the side of the back of the chamor, of the donkey, on Shabbos. Omar le, Abai says to Rabba, Mishtamish mar mebalei chayim. You're being mishtamish bebalei chayim, and that's also midirabbanan. The Rabbanan said you cannot ride a donkey, similarly you can't ride a horse, and therefore not only can you not ride on it, you cannot use the animal itself. So therefore, how can you go ahead and allow your son to be slid on the back, on the side of this donkey? Or marleit stadinhein. Answers Rabbah, we're talking about the side of the donkey. V'stadin lagazu b'hu rabbanan. And they did not make this include in the Gzeira when they said that it's also to ride on a donkey or to place something on top of the donkey. Minon Temra, where do I know to say that indeed stadin is mutter? This nan states in the Mishnah. Mater chavalim v'hishki noiflin. It says a person v'hasakin. Matir chavalim v'hasakin noiflin. He removes the ropes and the sakin and the sacks fall. That's our Mishnah. My love bechaver gevalke. Are we not talking about that? We're talking about two tied sacks. That means that there's a sack on each side of the donkey with a rope connecting the two sacks, and that rope is tied together. And in order then to go ahead and remove the sack, to undo the rope, you'd have to then go ahead and lean on the side of the chamor. And since you can go ahead and remove the rope, it says in the Mishnah, and allow the sacks to fall. So you see over here that when a person then is going to lean on the side of the donkey, that's not a problem. Stadin is not usher. So too over here, I can go ahead and use the side of the chamor for allowing my son to slide by and play with him on the side of the animal. The Gemara says, rejects this proof. Loi, bechaver agluvaki, the lo havit study. We're talking about untied saddle bags that do not have a rope that's tying the two like we said before, but rather what's connecting them is a clasp, a metal clasp. And therefore you can easily remove it. You don't have to then lean on the side of the chamor. Inami belachta. Alternatively, we're talking about where there's a wooden clip. Again, it's easy to remove, and you don't have to then lean on the side of the chamor. So you have no proof that letstadin is mutter from our Mishnah. Eisvei asked the Gemara, Shtaim bidei adam ve'achas bi'ilon kshera ve'in oilin lam b'yamtiv. Here we're talking about a sukkah. A sukkah does not have any specific requirements for the walls of the sukkah, other than the fact that they be at least 2.5 walls, let's say, 2 walls and a tefach specifically. And here we're talking about where a person he built 2 regular walls, and the 3rd wall he used was with an ilan, with a tree. And it says over here that the sukkah itself is kosher because it has 3 walls, but you cannot use it on Yom Tif. Now, why not? The Chacham were concerned that if you would use it on Yom Tif, then what happens is many use the schach on top by putting belongings on top. So if you use the schach by putting an object on top of the schach, and the schach is being supported by that 3rd wall, which is a tree, so then you're going to go ahead and be using the tree, and that would be a problem. So my lav, so that can't be, because that's for sure going to be problem. My lav, so he suggests the chok beit be'ilan davud litztadin. He's suggesting over here that he didn't use the tree itself as a wall. But the suggestion at this point is that the tree, he carved out and etched on 2 sides of the tree, one tree on one side, one tree on the other side, an etch he carved out so that he can put wood across as the wall. So that 3rd wall was really connected to 2 trees. So therefore, it comes out that over here, it's considered to be tzdadim. B'tzdadim asurin. The reason why you cannot use such a sukkah is because over here, you're using the sides of the tree. Here, the Gemara is saying that the same way that the sides of the tree cannot be used because they're going to then support the schach, that means to say, therefore, that's included in studying being usher. Then we can draw a parallel to the case over here in the animal. The side of the animal would be equally usher. So that's Abayi's proof. Says the Gemara, lo, you have no proof. The kafye le'ilon. We're talking about where you bent the tree, and thereby you took the tree, you bent it over, and then you tied, let's say the two trees, you tied the ilan itself together, the branches, and therefore it's not talking about tzadin, it's talking about the goof of the tree. Va'anasichu ilave, the kemeshamish be'ilan, and then the schach that is on top, that is being supported by this third wall, is really the tree itself. Therefore, you're being meshamish be'ilan if you were to then use the schach, and therefore it's also according to everybody, not because it's tzadin, but because you can't be meshamish be'ilan. So there's no proof from here that tzadin is also. Ihochi asked the Gemara, Eimo Seifa. Let's say from the Seifa, Sholosh bidei adam va'achas be'ilon ksheira va'oilam b'yontav. It says in the Seifa of this Mishnah that if you have three, or this Brisa rather, you have three man-made walls and a fourth wall, that's the Ilan that we're speaking about. So you can go ahead and use that on Yom Tif. V'idekafya li'ilan, if we're going to suggest that we're talking about that fourth wall of the Ilan, is that you then took the two branches of the Ilan trees and you tied them together to make that fourth wall. Amai olin b'yantiv. How come it's permissible to then use that sukkah? Hare, that's going to be mishamish be'ilan. Ve'elamai, so he says back to him, tzadin asur, and you're going to say that it's tzadin, and that's why it's asur, because it's not talking about the ilan itself. Sof amai olin le'beyantiv. It's tzadin, and tzadin is asur. How can you go use that sukkah? So the same question that you're asking on me would make it difficult for you as well. If you want to suggest a bai that tzadin is asur, then you cannot use such a sukkah. Elohasam, but rather, what's the Mishnah or the Bryce is saying in the Sefer here? Begavazo parichska. It's talking about you're using leafy branches, meaning the tree itself is not what we suggested before, that you're tying two branches together, right, from one tree to the other. But rather, we're saying that it's one tree that has many, many leaves. It's a very, very thick type of tree, whereby you're using that tree as a wall. But that wall, meaning that tree, is not supporting the schach. It's already getting supported by the three other walls. And therefore, there's no issue being Mishamish be'ilan. The ilan gufei doifen ba'almuhu deshavya. So the ilan itself becomes a wall, but it's not supporting the schach. Dekanami, you can medayik this as well. Diktani states zehaklal at the very end of the brisa. Kol ilu yinatel ha'ilan v'yichol la'amoid oilun lo b'yomtiv. It says over here a klal. If you're able to then remove the ilan, and still the schach will remain. So it's mutter. It's a good sukkah that you can even use on Yontif. So you see that the fourth wall, which is the tree itself, is not supporting the schach. Shmamina. The Gemara now asks or suggests, let us suggest that machlekes between Abai that says tzadin is aser and Rabbi that says tzadin is mutter is a machlekes tanoim. Ein oilin lo b'yontif. It says in the Brisa that you cannot go up into the sukkah on Yom Tiv. Rabbi Shimon Elazar Oimer Mishum Rabbi Meir Oilin lo b'Yom Tiv. You can go up on Yom Tiv. My lab b'Hokam. What's the machlokes in this Brisa between Rabbi Meir and the Tanakama? The Mar Sover Tzadin Asurin Umar Sover Mutarin. The Tanakama says that it's Aser, and therefore you cannot use it on Yom Tiv. Whereas Rabbi Meir says you can use it on Yom Tiv because there's no problem with Tzadin. Tzadin is Mutarin. Omar Abaye said, "Lo, that's not so. The kuliyam mit tzadin asurin. Everybody agrees, like I'm saying, that tzadin is aser. The hocha, what's their machlokes? Betzidei tzadin kimifli. They're arguing about tzidei tzadin. Mar saver tzidei tzadin asurin, or mar saver tzidei tzadin matarin. Here we're talking about a tzir, like we originally suggested, where you have a tree and two trees, and you carved onto each tree. And then you put beams across, making a wall. So here we're talking about where you're going to then use the schach. You're making use of the schach, which is only going to be tzidei tzdadim. It's not going to be even tzdadim. And therefore the machlok is over here is tzidei tzdadim, whether it's aser or mutter. According to Tana Kama, the tzidei tzdadim is aser. According to Rabbi Meir, it's mutter. Says the Gemara, that's Abayi's opinion. Rava argues, and he says, "Man the aser b'tzdadin, aser nam b'tzidei tzdadim." The one who says that it's aser to use tzdadim is also aser to use tzidei tzdadim. Man de shoy b'tzidei tzadin, shoy nam tzadin. And the one who is matir tzidei tzadin is matir also tzadin. They go hand in hand. In other words, there's no chiluk between tzadim and tzidei tzadin according to Rava. Eisvi Rav Mesharshel Rava. Rav Mesharshel asked Rava the following: Noatz, on top of Kuf Nun Hey Amid Aleph, Yesed Be'ilon V'tola B'kalkala. If a person, he stuck a peg in a tree, and he hung his basket on that peg. Lamala me'asara tfachim. If it's higher than 10 tfachim, and eruv eruv, then it's not going to be a good eruv. Lamata me'asara tfachim eruv eruv. If it's less than 10 tfachim high, then it would be a good eruv. Here we're talking about a person who wants to make his residence with this underneath a tree, and therefore he makes an eruv. If it's higher than 10 tefachim, we're talking about a basket that has 4 tefachim wide, so therefore it's a rishus hayachid, and therefore it's outside where the rishus harabim is, where he's situated, and it cannot be used. It's not a valid eruv. But if it's within asar tefachim, then he can establish residence where he is, where that basket is. And it says over here that the basket is hanging on the yosed, which is inside of the tree, which has been banged into the tree, which he put before Shabbos. Taimid the noatz. We'll make a diuk. The reason why it's mutter is because he was noatz yesed be'ilon, because he put this stake, this peg into the tree. Haloi noatz afilu matem asar tefachim eni eruv. But if he did not use the peg, and he would just tie the kalkala, the basket, to the side of the tree, then it would be a problem. So we see from here that the Tana is saying over here that the only reason why it's mutter is because you use tzidei tzdadim. It's mutter to use tzidei tzdadim because you're using the peg which is on the side of the tree. But if you would use the side of the tree itself, that would be tzdadim, that would be osir. Answers Rav Papa that you have no proof over here as a kasha on Rava to mechalik between tzdadim and tzidei tzdadim. Because Amar Rav Papa, Hacha bekalkala dechuka askinon. Rav Papa says because here we're talking about where the basket has a narrow mouth. Why is that significant? Because since it has a narrow mouth, in order to then get inside of this basket, you're going to then shake the tree if it's hung by the tree. The bahadi the shakuleli iruv kimenadi leilan v'mashamish beilan gufe. By then using such a narrow basket, if it would be on the side of the tree, you would go ahead and move the ilan or be probably mishamish beilan. But if it's on the yased, if it's on the peg, the stake that's connected to the tree, then there's not going to be this movement of the tree, and that's why it would be mutter. So this is the chiluk between why using why over here it's saying that you have to use the peg, not because we're talking about tzidei tzdadim is mutter and tzdadim is osir, but rather because a specific case of the kalkala being a narrow-mouthed kalkala. And the Gemara concludes now, v'hilchasa tzdadim asurin tzidei tzdadim mutorin. The halacha is indeed that tzdadim is osir and tzidei tzdadim is mutter. Omar Rav Ashi, Hashted the Amitz Dodin Asurin. Now that we have said that Tzadin is Surin, High Darge the Matla, a ladder that's going up to a watchtower. Lo linche inish adikle the Havalut Tzadin. A person should not rest the ladder on the dekel tree because that would be using the side of the dekel tree. That would probably be a problem of Tzadin. What should he do? Instead, he should then rest the ladder on a peg that is stuck into the dekel tree. And that will be tzidei tzdadim. And when he then walks up the ladder, he should not put his foot on the peg. Rather, he should put his foot on the rung of the ladder itself. And therefore, again, he'll then be avoiding the issue of tzdadim, which is also, and he'll use tzidei tzdadim, which is mutter.